Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the AI Rebels podcast. It's just Spencer and I today. We're excited to do a recap and lessons learned from our first season, which was incredible. We learned so much. We had so many amazing guests on. We saw so many different solutions and AI tools from, you know, trip planning to shrimp counting to meme making to sexual health, and everything, everything in between, everything you can imagine. It's just absolutely amazing to see what is being built to solve problems. Um, and we've loved it. It's been a great ride, and we're excited to see what comes next. I'm curious, Spencer. I know we were talking a little bit before, but I'm curious what themes or overall ideas that you saw as part of the first season.
Feel like our first season, I feel like overall we saw a ton of optimism from our guests, um, and I think that it's been interesting to with every guest. I think that the thing that stood out was their optimism about AI, and even if they weren't necessarily like some guests were expressed some reservations regarding their current tool, like hey, like I'm honestly not sure how far this will go, but this is what I'm working on right now, right?
Mm,
As is normal for startups, but almost without reservation, I feel like every single one of them still had a lot of optimism for the path and future for AI in general.
yeah.
Um, and another thing that really stood out to me is how enthusiastic everybody is about the technology. Like everyone we talked to, like they were not just interested in it because like, oh hey, like here's the next big thing. I
Hmm.
feel like we got a lot of people who are really interested in AI for AI, not just because it's like crypto kind of wound down. What's next? you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, totally.
um, and I look forward to continuing that streak as well. Because I
Yeah,
think
I thought it.
that,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, with what you just said, with the optimism and the ideas, I think it was fun to see. I mean, we're dealing with like the true first movers here. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
these are the people at the beginning of that bell curve that are accepting it early and building, and it's like it's infectious.
it
Every single
is.
time we come away from an episode, I'm like, all right, like this is changing the world. You know what I mean? Like this is so huge. So I totally agree
No,
with
it
that.
is. And recently, I feel like there's been, and we were just barely talking about this, and we'll probably talk about it some more. But recently, I feel like there's been a little bit of an energy shift for some people, where kind of that initial wave of hype has worn off a little bit, and now people are kind of looking around and like, oh, like when is this going to start making me money?
Hmm.
Which is valid, uh, but I really don't want people to lose that sense of optimism, right? Because like this is a
Yeah.
like I think that you and I from the beginning have been I'm playing with something that's probably coming through on the mic. Let me play with something else. I think that you and I have been pretty clear from the beginning that we think that AI, there's going to be some immediate short term improvements and effects that happen, right?
Yeah.
But that we both believe that the real benefits from AI are probably coming 5-10 years down the line, and I'm grateful for that because I think that that instinct has uh, led us in the correct direction with our optimism, right? Because there's
Hmm.
two kinds of optimism. People sometimes don't necessarily recognize this, but there's unfounded optimism where you just believe that everything is going to turn out peachy keen because you want it to turn out peachy keen.
Right.
Um, and it's okay to have some of that. I think that everyone needs to have some of that because it kind of aligns you with choices that are luckier, but that's a whole other topic I'd go into some other time. But then there's grounded optimism, which is the case, excuse me, what I think something like AI needs, right? Where you have to look at AI clearly and recognize the shortcomings as it exists currently, right? While also acknowledging like the huge potential for improvement and
Yeah.
huge potential for new systems. Because if there's a lot of people who argue and believe that language models like ChatGPT are kind of a dead end in terms of our search for artificial general intelligence. Um, and even if that's the case, like there's still so much that we can do with language models currently. Um, that just requires it requires a lot of work and time to build the systems around it, right? People mistakenly believe that ChatGPT and language models of this sort are kind of, do anything computers, right? Because in a sense that they are, right? In a sense they are, I should say. But at the same time, there's a lot that language models can't do very reliably that traditional algorithms are needed for, and building these traditional algorithms out and incorporating them with the language models, that's going to take some time, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, all that to say that I still think that the future is incredibly bright, despite some people recently having a little bit of a mindset change.
Yeah. And I think even over the course of the season, it was like this shift I started to see from like these developers being like, oh, fun, like let's build something, like this is cool, like let me just build something for the sake of building, to more of like how there was like two parts to it. One was like, how do I actually build something useful now? Not like now I've just like played with it. Let me like build something that's going to make a difference. And also like that business sense of like, how do I build something that's going to actually be sustainable and profitable? Which is interesting because I think, like you said, we need to be very careful with, I don't know, like I think change comes from people who want things to change for the sake of change. I don't know if that makes sense, but like people who are building AI for the sake of furthering AI rather than like, let me build a tool that's going to make me $1 million. Because then it's short-sighted. It's not, and I think a lot of the people we've already talked to with season 2, and I know a lot of people are going to, I think have that sense. I think we've been lucky to have a lot of guests on that are in this for the right reasons.
I think so too, because and we've talked about this before, but like I really believe that technology like this is essentially sacred, right? Like it's the distillation of years and years and centuries of human knowledge and work. And that's like, it's one of those things that when I think about it too deeply, like I even get like a little teary eyed thinking about it. Like that's insane.
Like emotional.
Like, yeah, exactly. Like it's crazy that, our computers can now recite to us knowledge that was written down by philosophers, back in, I don't remember. I'm going to get the dates of like Aristotle
long time ago.
Back in 2,000 years ago, right? And like not only can they now regurgitate information about them, but they can also hold discussions about their ideas. Like that's mind blowing. Like a whole can of worms as to the depth of those discussions, right? Like, but like the fact that they can even happen, is crazy. And yeah, I think that people really underestimate how much of a sea change this is. I don't understand how they still underestimate it, but I think that they do. Like I don't think that most people really don't fully realize like the world changed overnight and they weren't looking.
Yeah, seriously, it's made a complete shift.
Yeah, and like to your point that like everyone we've talked to has been a first mover. There's a new study every day that shows, oh hey, like 50% of people have heard of ChatGPT, but only 20% have actually used it. Stuff like that, right? We are so far from the peak of this wave. We might be near the peak of like this particular hype cycle,
Yeah.
But the overall wave of AI is going to continue to grow. Simple things like half of the things that you see on TikTok these days are made using filters that use diffusion, AI under the hood to do it.
Right.
and a couple other techniques as well. But like the point is like to some degree there has been mass pop cultural assimilation of this technology, and when that happens, like it tends to be sticky. And a lot of people don't even realize that these filters are AI.
Yeah. I'm curious, and maybe I can go first and then you can go, but I was trying to think of, we're talking about all these people we've interviewed, these founders, these builders, these AI rebels. And I was trying to think if there was one, as I think back over season 1, that really stuck out to me. And it was really hard. And this is not playing favorites at all because I loved them all. But I don't know. I was trying to think which one like shifted my perspective a lot. And honestly, I think, and now I'm always second guess, but honestly, I think our first episode with Yassine was like an immediate shift just because of his attitude. Like his tool obviously is so fun and cool. Dingboard, like just so cool. And him and as a person is so great. But I think honestly, and this is in line with what we've been saying, what shifted my perspective was when I saw his complete dedication and desire to furthering AI for the sake of AI. Like he treated it like it was a sacred thing that he's like dedicated to. He's like, no, this is huge. Yeah, I built Dingboard. It could disappear tomorrow, but like it's really about furthering AI. And I was like, wow, okay, this is like a sign of something bigger and really, really important. I don't know. What about you?
I felt very similarly. A couple that stood out to me first was the representation engineering episodes with Thea, with the control vectors.
Sorry, can we start this one more time? Just give me like 1 second.
No worries. No worries.
Okay, so you said just start that again.
So I think that so I think that there's a couple that stood out to me. The first was Thea, the episode about representation engineering. I think that the work that she's doing with control vectors is incredibly important. And there's been, there's some other people working in the space as well on tangential ideas. And those are important too. But I think that developing techniques like control vectors, like representation engineering are so critical to developing AI products that are reliable and work for people. And so I think that if I had to bet on the single highest leverage innovation that we saw from a guest, I would put it on that. And then the other one that really stood out to me was the episode with Bryce from with his Pendian. That's what it was called. His language resurrection project. That one stood out to me for a couple reasons. First, it seemed to really resonate with people. That clip, there's a particular clip of it that we post every now and then, and whenever we post it, wherever we post it, like it just gets a ton of attention. So it was pretty exciting from that perspective. But then also on a deeper level, we got a lot of feedback on that episode from people who spoke the language that he was, or had close family members who spoke the language that he was talking about. Quechua, that's the one. That he was talking about kind of preserving. And they were pretty heartfelt messages, and they were pretty excited about the potential of this technology to keep their their culture and their language alive. And that's like, again, one of those things when I think about it too, deeply enough, like I start getting like a little teary eyed, because that's incredibly powerful. And since that episode, I've been seeing tons of other similar stories of people being like, hey, posting threads on Twitter where they're like, my grandpa speaks this random language from the middle of the Pacific Ocean. I don't speak it, but with the help of ChatGPT, I was able to create like a little custom GPT to be able to speak with him in his language. Stuff like that, like that's beautiful. And it pains me to see the anti-AI sentiment surrounding language models for that reason, because people are missing so much beauty and so much potential that's there. Or recently, there was a U.S. I think that she was a congresswoman, I believe, from like New Hampshire or something like that. And in fact, I'm going to look up the news story right now because it's pretty cool. But with the help of between ChatGPT and I think it was 11 Labs, which is a voice AI company, she was able to recreate her old voice and now can talk as herself again. It's
Wow.
incredible. Like that's
Yeah.
that's so powerful.
Yeah,
Because imagine what it
there's
would be like to lose your voice and not have your, lose an essence of yourself for years and think you're never getting it back, thinking, for the rest of your life you're going to be communicating through one of those,
Yep.
boring text to speech voices. It's like, my
Yeah.
name is Harvey, right? And then getting your voice back, like that's deeply special.
Yeah, it's and completely life changing, and there's so many as you're pulling that up, I think another example that comes to mind was He Health with Udara when
Yeah.
he came on, and just the like we're just seeing it more and more, like AI is being applied to these like world problems like sexual health. It's just so
And
exciting
I
to
think
see
that
these like passionate. Yeah.
people underestimate who aren't involved in AI and aren't interested in it. I think they somewhat underestimate how difficult these problems were to address technologically prior to AI. Like here, let me pull up this. Let's see here. Here we go. Let me pull up this clip of Representative Jennifer Wexton talking.
As many of you know, last year I was
I
diagnosed
don't know
with
if it
progressive
comes through,
supranuclear
actually.
palsy, or PS.
But
Yeah, it's
in
coming
any
through.
case, we will link that video if the audio is not coming through.
Yeah,
Point being,
go ahead.
it's changing people's lives for the better, and we should invest ourselves in those applications.
Yeah.
I'm not going to deny that there are bad applications of AI. I've seen plenty of them. I've made fun of a lot of them. But we shouldn't let those goofy or immoral, unethical uses of AI distract us from the potential that's there.
Yep. Totally
as it
agree.
is with all technology.
And I think
That's
looking
my
forward,
pitch.
yeah, I totally agree with you. I think looking forward, I think we're going to see a similar continued trend with our season 2. I know we've already started to see it with the guests we've had on, and I think the next guests we have, I think both us and our listeners are really going to see AI, like a deeper application of AI. Like I'm excited to see now that we've had like the fun, like ChatGPT, like let's do this, let's do that, let's build a character, let's do this, which like are all fun and cool. But I
Yeah.
think we're gonna start to see this like deeper, like, oh, like we could apply it to these world issues. We could apply it to these problems in society and fixing these cultural things. And I just like I can't wait to see what's in store for this season with these guests.
I think so too. I'm excited as well because like you said, we've seen a lot of kind of like the low hanging fruit, and that's not to demean low hanging fruit. Like,
No,
you should reach
yeah.
for the low hanging fruit first. It's the easiest, most obvious,
start somewhere.
most fun stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But now that we're getting a couple years in from ChatGPT's launch, I think that we will. I think that we're going to start seeing a lot of the deeper stuff start to launch. And then also on top of that, I think that the excitement in the field of LLMs has kind of supercharged research in other areas of AI as well. And I think that we're going to start seeing the fruits of that soon. I've been seeing there's a couple group chats that I'm in where people are posting stuff that they're working on, and there's nothing that I can share that's mine to share. But there's some really, really interesting work being done by a lot of people. So everybody stay tuned, because like it's all just getting started.
Yeah. And like I would say we're going to see continued with season 1, we saw a lot of our guests just say, try it, like get out there, try AI, start using it. And I would say that's been consistent, and I don't think that's going to change.
That trend will continue.
If you're starting to listen now, just know that we've had like 20 AI founders and experts all say, if you don't want to get left behind, just try it. And I think we're going to have 100 more say the exact same thing.
And I want to stress again to people that the world of AI is so much wider than just ChatGPT. And I am a huge fan of ChatGPT and all of those language model chatbots, like one of the biggest fans in the world of those. It's what, sparked my love for AI, to be deeper, I should say. But the world of AI is so much broader than that. And don't, if there's a particular issue that you have with language models, don't hold that against the entire field of AI. Because there's something out there for everyone.
Yep.
Is how I'd put
Exactly.
it.
Well, we're excited to see what's in store. Stay tuned. We're going to have lots of very interesting and dynamic and passionate people on. So get excited.